Craig Forrest has been an iron curtain in goal. His 14 saves in Game 1 gave the Canucks a much-needed point in the standings. Carlo Corazzin has been the unstoppable force up front. His 2 goals against Costa Rica put him in the spotlight. Head coach Holger Osieck looks to sweeten the mix with a win tonight. Canada faces South Korea next on Sportsnet. From the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, it's Game 2 for Canada in the Gold Cup tonight. It's Canada taking on South Korea. Hi there, everyone, and welcome to CTV Sportsnet's continuing coverage of Gold Cup 2000. Jerry Dobson here, along with our analyst, Bob Leonarduzzi. Welcome once again to the Gold Cup, everyone. Well, Bob, Game 2 for Canada, despite the performance of the Canadian team, which is a little bit shaky. I guess they got the result they needed to set up this game where they have an opportunity now to go through. Well,
they got a draw. Fortunate to get a draw. Outplayed, outchanced, but in the end they got the point that they needed. That now puts their destiny in their own hands. They get a win tonight, they go through, they get a tie, they still have a chance. They lose, and they lose close, and they've still got a chance. So it's all up to them. All right, let's have a look at the standings, and that'll give you the scenario here and what Canada needs to do to advance. Basically, they're sitting there with Costa Rica with 1 point, a draw against South Korea, and they'll have 2. Obviously, the tie-breaking scenarios go like this. If Canada wins the group, well, they're through automatically. If they're tied with one of the teams for second, it's based, first of all, on goal differential. Then it's based on goals for, and failing that, if there's still a tie, and who wants to see this, they'll flip a coin. So we don't want to get to that, but it is a possibility. There's what happened the last 2 times these teams played, and Bob, you're familiar with both these results. I was in charge for both those games. The first game in Vancouver, we were well beaten. We'd had a look at them. The second game obviously was a 2-0 victory for us, and perhaps a little fortunate to win the second game by the 2, but needless to say, we were happy with the split. All right, let's talk a little bit now more in depth about what Canada did the other night in terms of their performance. Obviously, Craig Forrest was solid in goal. I mean, he's made maybe some better saves, but maybe not more quality saves than what he did the other night. He was outstanding. Well, he was absolutely outstanding. And not only did he play well in terms of shot stopping, dealing with crosses, but he was also commanding. You could see him literally push Jeff Clarke right out of the 6-yard box at one point, trying to organize the people in front of him. He was frustrated a little bit as well, and I believe he was frustrated because the defense was collapsing back onto him, but you could not ask for any more from him. And there we see him directing traffic, physically directing traffic. So he was right on top of his game. Canada outshot 14-8 in that game, and Craig Forrest was the field general. There's not too much doubt about that. On the other hand, they had problems moving the ball forward. Peschisolido was probably not getting the distribution that he needed. He was not getting the service from the midfielders. Well, I think that all stems back to the fact that one of the problems that Craig was having in goal, that the defense were that far back, that the midfielders were having to get farther back. Therefore, when Canada were getting in possession of the ball, they weren't getting into advanced positions. Here we see Pesch where he's at his best, and he generates a free kick. But what Canada are going to have to do tonight is push up the last line of defense so that the midfielders can get into positions to play Pesch through, because he'll make good runs, but they need to be in a position to get him the ball when he makes those runs. And how difficult is that going to be? Because none of us are all that familiar with South Korea, but we know that they will be quick. Well, South Korea, I'm certain, will adopt a similar type of play as to what Costa Rica did. They'll be very comfortable on the ball. They'll be very direct. Defensively, whether they play with a sweeper or not, it'd be better if they didn't, because that would give Pesch that opportunity to attack a flat line. But regardless of what South Korea do, Canada are going to have to be far more advanced in order to take advantage of Pesch's speed up front. All right, CTV Sportsnet's Alf de Blasis is in Los Angeles with the team, and he talked to some of the players about their performance the other night and about what they will have to do differently in order to get a result against South Korea.
Canada's next opponent here at the Gold Cup, South Korea, has made 5 World Cup appearances. That total will reach 6 come 2002 when the Koreans co-host the next edition of the World Cup. All that history and international experience, though, won't affect the Canadian players. They'll be focused on coming out strong and earning a positive result today.
We'll have to match them first on the physical side. You know, we'll have to show that we have the same aggression that they have and the same will to win, just like we did against Costa Rica. I mean, the Costa Ricans were a very physical side, very aggressive, you know, and they were quite quick as well up front. So, you know, I thought we matched them quite well in the second half, and we'll have to start the game like that against South Korea.
I think what we did in the second half yesterday, if we can get down the wings better, how Jimmy Brennan did in the second half, and get Davey going down the other side and getting crosses in, I think our height and our power will probably tell its tale.
I think we'll have to drop back a little bit and concentrate on defending in our own half. If you get stretched, you know, their speed they'll be able to utilize it to their best. So we'll take the field away from them, try to drop back and stay together as a unit.
Canada is expected to be at full strength for today's game. Defender Paul Fenwick, who left Sunday's match with back spasms, is expected to be fit enough to play. At the Gold Cup in Los Angeles, Alf de Blassis, CTV Sportsnet.
All right, as it turns out, Fenwick had a bit of a run this morning. The back is still acting up, so he will not be in the lineup, and we'll give you the Canadian lineup after we turn from the break. But first of all, interesting to hear Mark Watson talk about how they'll maybe have to play back a little bit more. How far back can they go?
Well, that comment leads me to believe that it was a tactic, and perhaps they didn't want to push out because they were concerned about the Costa Ricans' pace up front. And we heard Mark Watson acknowledge the fact that they're concerned with the South Koreans' pace, so we can expect more of the same, which is going to mean that Paul Stalteri and Jeff Clarke in the middle of midfield better be ready to do a lot of running.
All right, will they be out of gas? We'll find out. This is Canada's chance to qualify for the quarterfinals of Gold Cup 2000. We'll be back with the starting lineups right after this. Will it be a Hollywood script for Canada? We'll soon see.
En el nombre del Padre, del Hijo y del Espíritu Santo, gracias a nuestro Señor Jesucristo, el amor del Padre y la comunión del Espíritu Santo sea contigo, Marco, y también con tu calzado. Amén.
Muchas gracias, Padre, por su bendición.
Buena suerte.
Are car prices giving you the chills? Hyundai is heating up deals with 0 down and low lease rates during the Hyundai Winter Price Thaw. Warm up in the all-new 2000 Accent with 0 down and only $179 a month. Drive the sporty Elantra family sedan and chill with 0 down and only $239 a month. Or get into the luxurious Sonata with 0 down and a piping hot lease of just $299 a month. Save cold hard cash during the Hyundai Winter Price Thaw. At your Hyundai dealer now.
Hey, John. First one to get a Toshiba notebook. Isn't that super? Did that hurt, John? You know what hurts? Not getting a Toshiba notebook. That's what. Who's got the power now, Johnny? It's so light, yet reliable. Ooh, it's durable. Do not give me that.
Hey, Larry. Your new Toshiba notebook just came in. Boy, are people gonna be jealous of you.
Wonder how it works? Always Ultra has an ultra-absorbent lock-away core that turns liquid into gel and helps lock it inside. Always Ultra. Less pad, lots of protection.
The Gold Cup on CTV Sportsnet is brought to you by JVC, when performance matters. Hyundai, driving is believing. And by Adidas.
Welcome back, everyone. Canada beginning the Gold Cup with a 2-2 tie against Costa Rica, and now they've traveled up the coast from San Diego to Los Angeles for Game 2 against Korea. Look there at the LA Coliseum, the players coming out onto the field. Let's check the starting lineups for you. First of all, for Canada, and the one lineup change, Bob.
Well, Jeff Hastings is coming, or sorry, not Jeff Hastings. Richard Hastings is coming in at left fullback in place of the injured Paul Fenwick, which actually might give Canada more balance in their attack.
And as far as Korea are concerned, a couple of key players based in the midfield.
Number 6, Yoo will anchor the midfield, and number 8 is more of the creative part of midfield. So look for those two to make an impact.
All right, we are set to go from the LA Coliseum. There's been some rain there the last couple of days, but it shouldn't affect the field. It's in great shape. Temperature about 16 degrees at kickoff under partly cloudy skies. So let's go to it now. Canada and South Korea from the LA Coliseum. Canada wearing their red uniforms for today's game, obviously, as you can see, and moving left to right, and we are underway. And once again, a win for Canada, and they'd be through, and a tie, and that's a pretty good opportunity for them to go through as well. A loss, depending on the score, and then we get into all kinds of tie-breaking formulae to determine whether they will advance or not.
Well, it'll be interesting to see in the early stages of this game how Canada plays. Will they sit back and simply soak up the pressure and look to try and catch Korea on the counterattack, or will they advance the last line of defense and the midfield and the attack to play a little bit differently to what they, well, certainly a lot differently to what they did in the last game?
Canada with a 1-1 record all-time against Korea. Korea, a pretty good team in terms of where they play in Asia. They are third ranked in Asia in their group behind Saudi Arabia and Iran, number 52 in the world.
And they haven't had much success, unfortunately, at the World Cup. They've been to 5 World Cups, and the most recent one they started off well with a 1-1 draw against Belgium, and then were hammered by Holland 5-0 and finished up with a 3-1 loss to Mexico, who I'm sure Korea would like to be facing in the final.
Craig Forrest, 14 shots on goal against him the other night. 24 times he has played for Canada. That is second all-time to Paul Golden in terms of keepers for Canada. Again, we'll see if the Canadian back line lines up along in front of the penalty box as they seem to do for the most part the other night. And there's a good look at Richard Hastings.
And as I said off the top, Richard Hastings at left fullback, being naturally left-footed. Richard Hastings taking a good wallop for his efforts. Being a naturally left-sided player, it should provide Canada more balance coming out of the back. Against the recent opposition, we had Mark Watson at left back, and obviously not being naturally left-footed, it was difficult for him to play out of that position.
Number 6, that's SC Yoo, one of the key midfielders for this Korean team. That's him now chasing this one down. Yoo with some space there on the left side, but effectively knocked clean there by Paul Stalteri, who came back from his midfield position.
And certainly a similar tendency to the last game. Paul Stalteri tracking back from his midfield position to avoid danger. But we saw an early glimpse there of what the Koreans are capable of in going at and going past Canadian defenders.
YP Lee taking this corner kick for South Korea. And Canada now move away. Here comes Xausa, who Coach Holger Osieck had admitted did not get the job done simply because he was playing out of position. It wasn't meant as a criticism. It was simply meant that the guy was playing out of position due to all the injuries, and that was the best he could do. Stalteri now.
And with a game under his belt, hopefully he's a little more comfortable in that position. What he needs to do is simply stay wide, and Canada needs to try and utilize playing across the width of the field as opposed to just simply knocking it into the front man as much as they did last game.
Korea now coming away. 18 is Hwang. By Menezes. Good movement on the ball here by Korea. Into the box and headed out of there effectively by Watson.
Well, and if you were to change the opposition and look at the last game, that was almost a carbon copy of what was taking place for most of the last game. You saw Korea in comfortable possession about 25 yards out from the goal, a number of red shirts back on the edge of the box, and in the end, Canada gains a throw-in. So it looks at this stage that they're simply prepared to adopt the same sort of tactic that they did against Costa Rica.
Here's Xausa fighting off a challenge and moving into the box, and he might have a cross in front here, and it's knocked clear for a corner, I believe, for Canada.
Good start for Davide Xausa. Probably been more involved in these early minutes than he was throughout the whole of the last match. A nice bit of individual play there. Gets to the byline, but unfortunately too many blue shirts in between him and the Canadian forwards in front of the goal.
Korean keeper B.J. Kim with an interesting look.
And we saw Jason De Vos up, as he always is, from Canadian set plays. And you can rest assured that the smaller Koreans are going to be making it very difficult for him to get a free header.
Long ball here, and that's the shot right on Forrest by Yoo, and he handled that easily from long range. Stalteri. Menezes.
South Korea appearing at this point to be dropping off further than what Costa Rica were, which should give Canada some comfortable possession in their last line of defense.
In front and goes, and Kim rather fortunate there to come down with that one. And that is an interesting look, my oh my.
And Carlo Corazzin starting off again the way he did last game, confident with a back heel to Davide Xausa. Good cross, forcing the keeper to come off his line. Didn't hold it. And good challenge in the box by the Canadian forward.
Korea now to move forward. No, sends it in, but referee Brian Hall in charge of this game. Hall from the United States.
And the Koreans suggesting that the free kick was taken perhaps a couple of inches from where it should have been, and it should have been let go, but obviously Hall wants to stamp his mark in the game nice and early.
Canada enters this tournament ranked 80th in the world if you put any stock in the FIFA rankings. Canada only 9th in CONCACAF, which seems a little bit out of whack as well, as number 11 in the ponytail is on, taken down there.
Davide Xausa seemed to get his feet caught in the turf. Don't look for the Koreans to hang this ball up. And in fact, that's similar to what they've done on their last two corner kicks. They must look at the size differential and realize there's no point in hanging the ball up in the air, because they've taken two short corners and now taken a short free kick from within crossing distance.
And I think you can see it appears this way to us at least, that Canada not under the pressure on the back line as they were from Costa Rica the other night. They seem to have much more room in order to get the ball out.
I think the South Koreans have made the difference in that they are dropping off and allowing Canada the ball at the back, which for the Canadian defenders is obviously a welcome sign.
That play broken up, and there's Jim Brennan to Stalteri. Sends it back to Watson.
And this is actually something that you look forward to, even though you're not being challenged. Just hanging on to the ball for a portion of the game does give everybody a chance to get a break. And they're not, as you say, they're not under anywhere near as much pressure as they were against Costa Rica.
Good work there from Xausa to come away with that one. Clarke, now Stalteri. And Jason De Vos, you can see way over on the far side, and now he's got it. He's looking for Peschisolido, and it didn't work.
Encouraging for Canada is that Xausa has factored in most of the build-up down the right. We haven't really seen a lot of the left side at this point, and of course against Costa Rica, that most of the attack came down the left.
Challenge there for Corazzin. Korea still coming back here. On. Ball in the middle. Korea doing a good job of distributing the ball here.
Well, if the first 9 minutes are anything to go by, it will be a comparable game to the Costa Rica one, in that, and perhaps South Korea right now certainly don't look as effective as what Costa Rica did. So ideally the Canadians can gain some confidence from that and start to push forward themselves. It's certainly a better start than what they had against Costa Rica.
Hastings with that long ball going nowhere. YP Lee putting it back in play for South Korea. And moving forward here with Menezes. Stalteri looking for Brennan. The speedy Brennan can't haul that one in time.
And Menezes showing how comfortable he is on the ball, took it down on his chest and played a nice little through ball to allow Canada a promising attack on the Korean goal.
This Korean team, a mixture of players who play domestically in Korea and some in the Japanese league as well, but all of them based in Asia. Attack here now. That forward is bundled up, and Richard Hastings making his presence felt already here in this game.
And he was looking for a free kick, but the referee, Mr. Hall, was having none of it, and rightfully so.
Sun-Hong Hwang taking the dive there. Menezes now. His 9th international for Canada at age 25.
And those types of free kicks are ideally something Canada should be gaining more advantage of. That was simply a ball that was knocked too far. Ideally, they should be looking for the head of Carlo Corazzin, or at least looking to get it into his feet so that he can play other players in, namely Paul Peschisolido, which up to this point, I don't think we've seen him on the ball.
Well, and they've got to get the ball to him at some point.
And one of the most impressive aspects of Peschisolido's game tonight, although he wasn't involved in a lot of the attack, primarily because Canada were on the defensive, what impressed me was the fact that he was prepared to work defensively, closing the opposition down at every opportunity.
This is J.S. Park throwing it in. The cross comes right across from one side to the other.
Poor defending there by Richard Hastings, chasing the Korean round in a circle. Fortunately for Canada, it was a poor cross.
Mark Watson, the only player on the field who was on the field the last time these two teams played back in 1993.
And what you see from Mark Watson is what you get. You get a solid workmanlike effort, nothing fancy, but he gets the job done. Very rarely makes mistakes.
7th all time. In terms of international appearances for Canada, this is number 55. Korea moving the ball around a la Costa Rica from 2 nights ago.
Well, you can see Paul Pesch actually venturing back into that area to try and win the ball back. Perhaps he's a little frustrated that he hasn't really been in the game up to this point.
On, sending the ball down for Park, J.S. Park, who puts it across and headed away there by Watson.
We can see there were 5 Canadian shirts in the box. There were 2 Korean players. And similar to the other night, Canada seemed comfortable with the fact that they've got bodies back, but they're not necessarily picking up players, which again is Jeff Clarke and Stalteri in midfield are having to do a lot of running.
Slow build up here for Korea. Approaching 15 minutes gone, quarter of an hour just about here. Hastings, other side for Watson. Pardon me, that's Jeff Clarke. Westminster, BC. Stalteri. Watson. Over the head of Xausa, and Korea come back. Frequent short passes from South Korea. Their possession,
which Canada will probably be quite happy to deal with up to this point. What Korea needs to do is be more incisive when they hit that final third. But with all those red shirts back there, it's going to take a special ball to break this Canadian defense down. And if Korea resorts to crosses, Canada will be quite comfortable with that. They've got some tall defenders, Watson, De Vos, that are very competent in the air.
Canada, as we've discussed, missing several key players due to injury, mostly in midfield. And of course, Brad Parker, who was a no-show for this tournament. And as a result, he's being suspended. Here's Brennan. He was probably Canada's best forward, or at least he plays midfield, but apart from Craig Forrest, probably Canada's best player, even though Corazzin scored the 2 goals. Brennan was really showing his stuff the other night.
Brennan was involved in both ends of the park. He was prompting going forward, getting good crosses into the box, going by defenders. And defensively, we saw him actually bypassing Canada's defenders and tracking back and trying to clear the danger. He turned in a great performance, and in this particular game, he's actually been quite quiet compared to what he did the last game.
Brennan, who made his debut for Canada against Northern Ireland last April, which was Holger Osieck's first game as coach for Canada. He's just 22 years old. But we talk about some of these young guys in the Canadian team and their eligibility for the Olympics and the qualifying which comes up there in March and April, and you wonder how many of these young players will be available to Bruce Twomley during the critical part of their league seasons.
Well, I think Bruce Twomley and Holger Osieck are almost resigned to the fact that the most important games coming up in this particular year are going to be the World Cup qualifiers. They don't want to jeopardize accessing those players by calling them in for the Olympic Games. So I don't think they're going to get all of those players back for Olympic qualifying, which would be unfortunate because they've got a very, very good side that's been together for quite a long time.
Good work here from Richard Hastings. Finally stripped of the ball. But Canada comes back. Stalteri chips one in there into the box. This is available right here. Corazzin had it there for a moment, but that chance just simply disappears as Yoo comes back for Korea.
Well, any of the crosses that have come in from either side, the Koreans have not looked anywhere near capable of outmatching the Canadians. So once again, Canada will be quite happy to deal with those crosses.
Menezes, Stalteri. De Vos.
And as much as this may not look effective, they're keeping possession of the ball right now. They're going side to side. Ideally, at some point, something is going to open up in front. We never saw Paul Stalteri have that much room against Costa Rica. So that's an encouraging sign for Canada.
Back now. There's Brennan to break that play up on the far side. Stalteri again in the middle.
Another aspect of the game that, as it wears on, could be telling is the fact that Canada are playing 2 games in a very short period of time. South Korea are rested, having arrived in Los Angeles, and we're waiting for Canada. So as the game wears on, that could be an aspect that plays in Korea's favor.
There, both Xausa and number 16, Kim, came in high there.
Well, and that was the first touch we've seen from Paul Peschisolido. And for Paul Peschisolido, it wasn't a very good touch. The ball was played into his feet, and he miscontrolled it. And that may be the fact that he's a little frustrated that he really hasn't been in the game to date. And for that matter, neither has Carlo Corazzin.
2 men up front for Canada, Corazzin and Peschisolido, very quiet thus far. Hong. Yoo. This is a bit dicey here for Canada. Watson appeared not exactly to know what to do with it, I guess hoping Forrest would come out, which he eventually did.
Forrest doing a good job of seeing that Mark Watson didn't just simply want to play it out for a throw-in, waited for Craig to come off his line, and that's exactly what he did.
Stalteri looking for Brennan. And this looks like a good chance here for Canada. Into the box it goes, headed by Corazzin that time. It's still there. Stalteri with a left foot. And it's cleared away at the edge of the box. That play was
Pesch with just a little push in the back. But promising play by Canada. Jim Brennan with a good cross to the far post. Carlo Corazzin getting up. Couldn't do much more other than direct it back towards the center of the goal. But again, an encouraging run of play for Canada. Pesch just had a little nudge in the back before he collected that ball, and the referee, unfortunately for him, spotted him.
Kim now for Korea. They have several Kims, as you might expect in this team. That's B.J. Kim, the keeper. That play doesn't do much for Canada, as Kim will simply start it up again.
We're almost 22 minutes into the match now, and I don't think we've had a good chance. Korea have probably had most of the possession, but we haven't had a real good chance at either end. Most of the game is being played in the middle of the park. In South Korea, what they're going to need to do to try and get through this Canadian team is move the ball a bit quicker and then look for that defense-splitting pass as opposed to keeping possession. Canada are simply just going to need to keep more possession, try to get the two front men in and get some good comfortable balls into them.
Korea now back. Lee. That's broken up. And there's the man with the speed coming down the left flank. And does he have a shot here? He does, but not effective. But that's what Jim Brennan can do.
Well, and Jim Brennan did everything right. Unfortunately, he showed his inexperience a little bit at that point. He tried a long-range effort. He probably should have hung on to it a little bit longer. He had Carlo Corazzin making a run in the box. And obviously, he's got one thing on his mind after he looks across. He's going to strike it. And to be fair to him, it did take a little bobble just as he was about to hit it. And it went way over the bar.
Korea now slow to build up. Retaining possession. That was Hong with the pass there. Taken away by Hastings, who didn't do too much with it. Pardon me, Jeff Clarke. And out it goes.
And Xausa, after some early signs down the right, has gone quiet. He hasn't received a lot of the ball. Neither is Brennan on the left. He's had the one good cross. And I think for Canada, really what they need to do again is try to use the width, try to get both those players involved in the game.
Hong. Yoo. Back to Hong. Korea with good possession here, working in, get it into the box.
Well, one of the characteristics of a 4-4-2 is that you play zonal defense, and that's exactly what Canada are doing right now. They're playing textbook 4-4-2. They're allowing the Koreans to run, and then they're simply just passing them on. And they've got enough bodies back there that Korea are having to resort to the type of shots they just hit, which are going to cause Craig Forrest no problems.
Brennan fighting for that one. Went off him, and so here's Korea one more time. Look at that one.
See Brennan just getting his arm across the South Korean. Nothing deliberate or nasty, making it difficult for the Korean to get a free header.
Yes, Park put that one back in, and this time the call goes Canada's way.
Well, the game right now needs something. From Canada's point of view, they're probably quite content with the fact that they haven't given up any real good goal-scoring opportunities. They're keeping a little more possession than they did against Costa Rica, but really it needs a spark. It needs somebody to get this game and take it by the scruff of the neck, because right now it's a game of chess. There's not a lot happening that's exciting to the people that are watching.
Well, the best news for Canada, though, is by this point in the game against Costa Rica, there had been several good scoring opportunities for Costa Rica.
Exactly.
In fact, they had a 1-0 lead.
Oh, in fact, and that means one of two things. It means that Canada is playing that much better in this game, or in fact, Costa Rica are that much a better side than South Korea.
Mounting an attack here. That's on with the shot, and then another crack at it. Canada, when they are under pressure, seem to have that same strategy with the defenders lined up right along the front of the box.
And although Costa Rica were hitting plenty of long-range efforts, they at least were making Craig Forrest make saves. Up to this point, South Korea, I've counted about 3, possibly 4 shots that they've taken. None of them have hit the target, and they've been way wide. And up to this point, Craig Forrest really hasn't had a save to make.
All these games in the Gold Cup are double headers, so at the conclusion of this one, it will be a Group C match between Guatemala and Trinidad and Tobago. Mexico, the other team in Group C. Canada's round robin portion of the tournament wraps up after this game, and then, depending on the result of this game, could very well have to wait and see the result of South Korea and Costa Rica on Thursday night before they know if they'll advance or not. Here is no. Headed away that time by Stalteri.
And as much as that cross resulted in a goal kick, it's probably a better cross than floating it up at the far post. What the Koreans need to do is try and drive balls in and get in front of the Canadian defenders, because they simply don't have the height to deal with those high crosses.
Clarke chipping that one on with his head. Xausa now handing it over for Clarke.
For Jeff Clarke, his second start in the middle of midfield, something he'll be quite happy about. He's getting a chance to prove to Holger Osieck what he can do. Is not his best position. He'd prefer to play either at the back or on the right side or the right flank of defense. But again, he's getting an opportunity because of the depleted squad.
Back, but there's Stalteri to chip that out of trouble, although he really didn't, because he put it right onto the foot of 17 J.S. Park, who gets it into the box. So a bit of an aimless attempt there from Stalteri. Could have been disastrous.
A fast cross into the back. The Canadians are claiming that it went off the Korean, which they appear to be right on, but unfortunately they're having to deal with a corner right now.
Lee, number 12, takes the corner for Korea. Pretty good when it is, except it was too close to Forrest. It had good pace on it, but Forrest easily off his line to corral that one.
Craig Forrest will be going back to West Ham and will likely be the starting goalkeeper. Shaka Hislop breaking his leg in the last league game for West Ham. So in addition to having a great game against Costa Rica, he probably feels disappointed for Hislop, but quite fortunate that he's going to get what looks to be a good running goal for West Ham United, which he hasn't had since he's got there.
And the interesting thing is Harry Redknapp could have 2 North American keepers on his side.
Ian Fuhr, who's played in the MLS and is in England right now in the lower divisions. West Ham appear to be making a bid to purchase him. But I would think that of the two, Craig's going to get the chance to start in goal and make the position his own whilst Hislop goes out of the lineup.
Clarke, Canada. Stalteri. Menezes. De Vos, who's playing more wide left in this game, I think, than he did against Costa Rica.
Well, what Canada are getting the chance to do is they're getting the chance to take their time coming out of the back, which they never seem to do against Costa Rica. And what's happening is, as Canada are gaining possession, the center backs are splitting wide and trying to stretch the South Korean forwards to make them run.
Ty-Young Kim. Canada getting set up here for a play on this free kick.
Look for Jason De Vos, who is likely positioned at the far post to be the first alternative.
Brian Hall is ruling this game rather closely. Xausa in position.
It was Xausa who crossed it for the second. A poor cross by David. Tried to be too precise instead of just simply wrapping his foot around the ball and hanging it up at the far post.
He's the one who sent it across for De Vos against Costa Rica, which resulted in Corazzin's tying goal.
And when you're dealing with the height advantage that you have, it's certainly better to hit the ball higher and farther than to simply drive it into the near post and have it cleared away, as was the case on the last occasion.
Tackle there from Clarke.
Carlo not happy with the treatment he's getting from the South Korean defender.
Koreans came into this game with visions of advancing rather easily and hopefully getting to test their mettle against the likes of possibly Colombia or Mexico before that to see where they stand, because they think they've got a pretty solid side. And you wonder, the longer this game goes on tied, what will be crossing their minds?
Well, I can tell you right now that if they had those visions, they weren't based on much of a foundation, because I don't think this South Korean team is capable of stepping up their game that much more.
There's a chance, sent out smartly into the box and then cleared away, but not cleared away enough as Korea keeps it on, and then there's the flag.
Great job by Canada.
Park doesn't agree.
Pushing. He's claiming that one of the Canadian defenders, and I think it was Mark Watson, actually came from off the field, and he did. And he was absolutely right. The linesman was looking across the line, but didn't look that far back because Mark Watson was actually off the field. So Canada dodged a bit of a bullet there.
Canada getting away with one here, and Park knew it. There's nothing he can do about it now. More than half an hour gone now. Still no goals in this game.
No goals and no chances.
True, it's been all in the middle, hasn't it? Back pass there from one Korean to another. They've done that a lot in a half an hour of football.
And I'm sure that Holger Osieck would have had a quiet word with Jim Brennan, or maybe not even a quiet word, but he certainly would have made his team aware of the fact that what you cannot afford to do is allow the ball to go inside you when you're defending, and that's exactly what happened on Costa Rica's second goal, and it could have happened on that last sequence where South Korea were attacking, but the Canadian defender did a good job of shutting off the inside lane and making the ball go out of play.
Come Korea again. Clarke is back this time. Just an aimless clear, and Hwang resets for Korea. Back into the box it goes. This is Hwang still in front. Another
look at
shot
Jason
there.
De Vos.
Up by Park, and De Vos was all the way over.
De Vos was the defender that headed the ball out, continued to come out, and actually got the block on the shot.
Not out of danger yet, as Korea perhaps sensing something here. Canada a little bit desperate to clear. Stalteri now, methodically. Then didn't do much with it when he had the opportunity. There's Lee. Over Osieck with a record of 6 wins, 3 losses, and 4 draws. He's taking over last year. Actually, technically, he took over in the fall of '98. First game, April 29th, 1999, in Northern Ireland.
And to the association's credit, they've given Holger an itinerary of games that he's been very happy with. I know that was one of the concerns early on. Well, they've hired a coach. Now will he get the games to develop his team? And he's had that.
That was Hwang distributing that ball to the far side. And here come Korea again into the box, and a left-footed strike there. Yoo.
That's something that Craig Forrest will be happy to see. I don't think he would have had much difficulty with the shot had it made it through, but it's great for a goalkeeper when you look up and you see your defenders blocking shots as they have done tonight.
South Korea stepping up their attack just a little bit here in the last 5 or 6 minutes. And it's resulting in a couple of semi-opportunities, I suppose, is the best way to put it. Lee.
Well, what's disappointing to me from the South Korean point of view is there doesn't seem to be a real crispness or a sharpness there to their game. They don't seem to really be able to step their game up from what they've shown so far. And I expected much more from them than they've shown me tonight. But again, maybe we need to credit the Canadians. They've done a good job of shutting them down and not allowing them any opportunities.
Vos. Middle for Corazzin. Back he comes. Collect that one and start back. Clarke then for Stalteri. Xausa trying to make something happen. Number 8, Jung-Yoon-No, down in a bit of agony momentarily.
I think he got an accidental knee, or
he was grabbing at a part of his head that didn't appear to get hit.
Oh, we see the foot go up, and actually it does come down on his face. Not right on it, but it slid across his face.
He's back and still in the game. No damage done there.
Well, if you're Canada right now, you're quite comfortable with the fact that you're dealing with anything that South Korea are throwing at you. And at some point, you'd like to think that they're going to step their game up now, know that they've got the defensive side sorted out, and see what they can do in terms of creating some attacks of their own up to this point, which they really haven't done.
Peschisolido, very quiet here in this game.
He's been quiet, but he is the type of player that, although he can go quiet for 90 minutes, all he needs to do is simply show that little burst of speed and that bit of initiative, and he can win you a game. So, although he's quiet, he's always capable of doing something special with the ball.
Clarke fighting with Hwang.
And of course, Carlo Corazzin, his striking partner up front, scored 5 goals in his last 3 games. So if he gets a chance, he'll be confident enough that he would be able to take advantage of that.
5 minutes plus stoppage time to be added on. That's all that's left of this first half. Korea again moving in. Oh, and there's an opportunity right in front. And that was lucky for Craig Forrest and Canada.
Best chance of the game, and although you don't want to finger point, it came from the Paul Stalteri giveaway. Good cross into the box. Lots of red shirts back there, but the South Korean just gets in front of the Canadian defenders and across Craig Forrest. and redirects it over the bar.
Sang-Chul Yoo.
Good ball into the near post. Really gave Craig no chance. And all he needed to do was keep that down, and Korea would have been ahead. First real good opportunity that Korea have generated, and it came from a Canadian giveaway in their own end.
Stalteri now. He's had more space in this game to work with in the first half than he did the entire game against Costa Rica. Clarke now to Corazzin. Clarke again. That'll be Canada's throw-in.
Although we see Jeff Clarke sweating, conditions in California are perfect for a game. Somewhere in the 65-degree neighborhood, which is great soccer weather.
Lee sending it forward. No. One. Again, and they are moving the ball nicely.
Moving the ball nicely, but you never get the feeling that they're going to break this Canadian defense down.
Going in circles a little bit between the center stripe and the penalty box.
And it appears that Jeff Clarke has made an adjustment. He appears to be playing on the right side of midfield. Davide Xausa more central for a bit.
Paul Peschisolido went down on that play, and he's still down. He seemed to get a foot from the Korean into the right side, into the rib area. He's very slow to get up. I don't know exactly what happened there, but he's grabbing his ribs and now checking it out. But it appeared as though a Korean got his right foot around and under his arm and into his ribs. I'm not sure who the Korean player was. Here we go.
Caught him in the midsection, in the ribs.
The 5 is Lee. Lim-Saeng Lee. Play back underway as Kusch gets back on his feet.
The Koreans do the admirable thing and give the ball back to Canada from the throw-in.
So the one good chance there from you just a few moments ago, but other than that, it's been a rather uneventful first half here in the Los Angeles Coliseum.
Well, certainly compared to the Costa Rica game, where Costa Rica obviously played very well and had Canada on their heels for most of the match. In this particular game, Canada, other than that one opportunity, have really not looked tested at the back.
Here comes Canada now. It's Clarke. Xausa puts it in, but it's headed right back to him. Stalteri. Losing possession, Xausa takes over. That's the end of that foray. Hwang for Korea.
Canada perhaps looking more comfortable at the back because they now have a game under their belt, playing with 4 at the back. And look, again, very steady. They're all holding their positions. As I said off the top, Richard Hastings at left back gives them, I think, a little bit more balance there, and he is naturally left-footed, but they haven't looked challenged at the back, and they've been able to keep some possession and play balls out of the back, which they certainly weren't able to do against Costa Rica.
Time winding down here in the first half. Here's Hong. Myung-Bo Hong. is slow to develop here. It's early yet, but the way this one is shaking down, it could all come down to Costa Rica and Korea on Thursday night to determine who advances. 1 minute of time to be added on here in the first half. No. Vos heads that out of harm's way.
When you factor in the injuries, if you look at where Canada are depleted the most, it is in midfield. And you've got Dazovic, Bertram, and Bent, all likely starters that are out of the team. So when you take that into consideration, the result against Costa Rica, the performance in the first half against South Korea, they look very solid.
And there's the halftime whistle, and so no damage done for either side, and not a whole lot of work for Brian Hall, although he was right in the middle of it for the most part, keeping things under his control. As I wonder what's going on in Holger Osieck's mind as he has his team knotted 0-0 draw so far against Korea at the half. Alf de Vos with his thoughts from the LA Coliseum when we return to Gold Cup 2000.
Are car prices giving you the chills? Hyundai is heating up deals with 0 down and low lease rates during the Hyundai winter price thaw. Warm up in the all-new 2000 Accent with 0 down and only $179 a month. Drive the sporty Elantra family sedan and chill with 0 down and only $239 a month. Or get into the luxurious Sonata with 0 down and a piping hot lease of just $299 a month. Save cold hard cash during the Hyundai winter price thaw. At your Hyundai dealer now.
Team Canadian Fantasy Camp, where Canadian hockey greats will train you and 5 friends in skating, shooting, conditioning, and other fine points of the game. Look for a red bottle in specially marked cases of Molson Canadian, plus a collectible Roots tube free in every case. Team Canadian Fantasy Camp.
It's a Canadian game.
No purchase necessary, must be legal drinking age.
When disaster strikes, help can't arrive fast enough. But when the emergency is over, the Canadian Tire Foundation for Families will be there. By bringing resources and people together in times of crisis, the Canadian Tire Foundation for Families helps families when they need it most. Across the community and across Canada, picking up the pieces and putting lives back together. That's the Canadian Tire Foundation for Families.
Welcome back to our studios, everyone. No score at the half between South Korea and Canada. Game 1 for Korea in the Gold Cup, Game 2 for Canada here in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Joining us on the line now from Los Angeles, Sportsnet's Alf de Vos. And Alf, I'm having trouble talking now because I'm falling asleep with the way this first half has gone. And I'm assuming you feel the same way. Some bad giveaways there by Canada, lackluster performance.
Yeah, they've been very sloppy, haven't they, Jerry and Bob? They've been a little bit ragged, and that's a little bit surprising. They've been turning the ball over quite a bit, and I think first touch is really hurting them, and they just seem to not be making very good decisions. Now, defensively, I think we're blocking shots, and we're certainly playing up against the South Koreans and not giving them a lot of space in the box. And obviously, we've seen Craig hasn't really had a great deal of work. But I just think that if you want to call them unforced errors, we're certainly committing a lot of those.
Alf, something that's difficult to gauge off the tube is the intensity, the urgency of the game. Certainly, I'm disappointed with the South Koreans. They appear to me to have very little in the way of breaking down the Canadians. What is it like there? Does there appear to be an urgency, or does it come across the same way live?
No, it certainly does. That's a good point, Bob. I was looking for number 6, Yoo, to be a much more effective player, and he's just kind of faded out after kind of an early burst. Same with number 11, the player with the ponytail on, who also seemed to initially look as if he was going to be a dangerous player, but neither one of them have really been very effective up front. And I think we've been taking a lot of space away from them, and I credit Mark Watson as probably being the standout player for the Canadians. I mean, he's just been coming up and winning the ball in the air time after time after time, and he's been so effective in clearing the danger. But I just think we've really got to improve our first touch and spread the ball out a little bit better. And I think Jeff Clarke playing on the right side with Davide Xausa swinging into the middle was tactically a good move. I think Jeff gives us a little bit more width, but we certainly got to bring some crosses in to serve Carlo and Paul.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Alf. Enjoy the second half, and we shall see what unfolds from the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. So it is 0-0 at the half between Canada and South Korea, and we will be back with more of our halftime show here in the studio. Bob Leonarduzzi and Jerry Dobson when we return in just a moment. The only opportunity really for Canada in that first half was this strike by Jim Brennan, which, due to a bit of a bounce, went harmlessly wide and high. And so there is no score from the Los Angeles Coliseum after one half of play. Well, one of the more solid performers and one of the best goal scorers for Canada in recent years has been striker Paul Peschisolido. Now, Peschisolido plays for English First Division side Fulham and has not played for Canada until this tournament since last April. For his thoughts, Alf de Blasses sat down and chatted with Paul Peschisolido recently.
Forward Paul Peschisolido was one of the first Canadian players to command a lucrative offer from an English League club. His success has paved the way for other Canadian players to join him in the UK. But now Peschisolido is having to prove himself all over again just to hold his place with club team Fulham.
At the beginning of the season, obviously I was upset. They brought in the likes of a Stan Collymore, who obviously has a huge name, and so I wasn't too upset. I just wanted to wait for my chance to get in there, and once I got it taken, I did that, and had a good run in the first team, and we were continuing our unbeaten streak, and I was scoring goals. And then unfortunately, injuries happened, and it's sort of been up and down since then. We had the likes of a Kevin Keegan as a manager at the end of last season, and we finished on an extreme high, being champions of second division. And obviously the profile of our club was outstanding. Unfortunately, he left for England, which you couldn't blame him. It is his country, and it's an honour, obviously, to play for your country. To manage it would be similar. But the number 2 in charge last season was Paul Bracewell, and he sort of carried over Keegan's ideas, and we started off the season on fire. I think we went we had a record as far as undefeated games. I think we went 13 or 14. And found ourselves, second place and flying up the league. And then we went through quite a bad spell in which we're still sort of in. And now we've sort of faltered a bit, but we're looking to put that right and get ourselves back up.
Paul, does it weigh psychologically on you to kind of have to prove yourself over and over again at Fulham? New managers and new situations after
No, actually,
England?
I find it quite good. It kicks out complacency, which when you get that as a footballer, you get a bit of stalemate and you just go through the motions. But at this club now, there's 2 or 3 good players for each position. If you don't pull your weight, you'll find yourself out. And not only does it help individuals, it'll help the team.
Paul, I'm sure you're looking forward to achieving a couple of goals, and one is promotion with Fulham, and the other is a possible trip to the World Cup with Canada.
I think everyone's childhood dreams as a footballer would be to represent their country in a World Cup, and they say strikers hit their peak at 28, 29, so looking at realistically, that's what I want to do. I want to obviously play in the Premiership, and to play in a World Cup would be just phenomenal for me personally, and I'm hoping we build a squad here that can do it.
South Korea with an opportunity here. This was their best chance from Yoo, but it remains scoreless. Paul Peschisolido has not scored for Canada since 1996. Does he have one in him now? Maybe it'll be Hastings. Back in a minute. Our next game, well, we'll see. If Canada can qualify for the quarterfinals, we will have it for you. That game will come your way on Sunday. Okay, so it's scoreless at the half, and you get the feeling when you watched Holger Osieck walk off, he is not pleased, and yet they are in the same position as they were at the half against Costa Rica.
Expectations rise. They probably thought they were going to be under siege from this South Korea team. Everybody prior to the tournament started were saying, this is a good South Korea team. Well, they've shown nothing in the first half. I'm sure Holger's gone in at halftime and said, hey, we're in this game. We should be taking it to them.
Well, the question is, can they take it to them, I suppose, because they've got, as you say, that mindset. As we look at pretty good crowd there as we get set to start the second half, will they be able to take it to Korea?
I think they've got the personnel in the squad to do that, and I think what they've got to start doing is believing that they can. Right now, they're happy. They've bottled them up. They need to do more offensively. Defensively, they're fine. Offensively, they need to provide a spark.
This crowd waiting for the second half of the doubleheader as well, because there are 2 games played. All games are doubleheaders. The next game will be Guatemala and Trinidad and Tobago. That's from Group C. Mexico leads that group. Group D, comprised of Costa Rica, Canada, and Korea, and we are underway in the second half here. Canada and South Korea. A win for Canada, they'd be through. A tie, and they could very well be through. A loss, and then it gets pretty dicey. No substitutions here. And down just after a few seconds is Davide Xausa. A hard tackle there. Number 5, Lim-Saeng Lee.
See that Holger hasn't really changed much in the way of personnel. He has changed, well, he changed halfway through the first half. Jeff Clarke and Davide Xausa. Jeff Clarke now playing on the right, Davide Xausa in the middle of the park.
Davide Xausa back then to a position that he's a little more familiar with.
I think he will be more comfortable in there, and I think what will likely happen is Paul Stalteri will likely adopt more of a defensive mode.
That set piece for Canada didn't amount to anything. Here's a bit of an opportunity here as the ball is loose in the box. Unfortunately, unable to get a foot on it for any of the Canadian players who were in there deep.
Hey, much better start for Canada. They got a free kick early at the start of the second half. They had a half chance there. That's what they need to keep doing now. And hopefully they can maintain that throughout the course of this half, because, again, they're not playing against a great side here. They're playing against a half-decent side, and they've now got to realize that they're in this game and they can go and win it. It's there for them to win.
Jason De Vos moving up to head that one. And as was the case the other night when the crowd started to fill in for the second game of the doubleheader, you can sort of hear the crowd noise beginning to mount a little bit here as well. Xausa losing the ball in midfield. Substitution for Korea there, as you saw. Here's Mark Watson. Kim, the keeper for Korea, who has not had a lot to do. I'm not sure that he's made a stop yet. Brennan had the one chance that went high. Korean substitution. Out goes Hong, number 20. Defender, and in comes number 2. That's Kang. Corazzin urging his mates on, looking for some sort of offensive spark here. There hasn't been too much up front from Corazzin and Peschisolido.
However, you can't simply blame them for that. They need the service, and for the most part, Canada opted to just simply sit back. And what they need to do is push out. And they appeared to come out with more of a sense of urgency in this half than they had throughout the first half.
Xausa has been involved quite a bit, but he's having trouble servicing his people, giving the ball away. And here comes Korea now. And that's knocked away by Menezes for the corner kick.
Well, I would think the Canadian defense, if they were concerned about the pace and the speed of the South Koreans, they must have been satisfied in that first half that they really don't have an extraordinary amount of that. So I'd like to see them push up, squeeze the space, and again, I think that will benefit Canada's attacking play.
Strike there, just off the mark. Forrest going, all right, guys.
I don't know if that's a look of don't let him shoot or no big deal. Probably a little bit of both. That's certainly the best shot of the game by the South Koreans. The previous ones have been weak and off target. That was off target, but it had a bit of pace.
YP Lee taking that shot. Peschisolido with a touch on it there. Now it comes over to Xausa looking for Peschisolido again.
Oh, they're looking for a penalty there.
Didn't get it. Play on, says referee Hall. De Vos. He's a play on Peschisolido again.
No penalty there. And Hall, referee Hall, in a great position to see that Peschisolido was trying to make a meal of it and attract the penalty.
It's Lee. Korea now getting possession in fairly deep, unable to penetrate the defense and forced to shoot from positions like that.
Well, at least they're starting to hit the target, which they weren't doing in the first half. But shots from that distance, as we said against Costa Rica, they're never going to beat Craig Forrest unless they're world class. He sees it all the way, he gets down behind it. Routine save for Craig Forrest.
Number 8 is J.Y. No, who took that shot. This is Lee. Kim. That's T.Y. Kim. Try to keep them straight for you. Again, there are several of them on this team. 2 is the substitute who came on at the start of the second half, Kang.
With Davide Xausa in the middle of the park, he's certainly a player that's comfortable, wants to be on the ball. He's going to have to start demanding that off the back four. And if anybody can change the way that the Canadians are attacking, I think he's capable of doing that, but he's going to have to get the ball on a regular basis.
De Vos from Appin, Ontario. He's played 16 straight games for Canada. A 6-year-old from Dundee United.
And we should add that whether or not his not being there had anything to do with it, his club side, Dundee United, were knocked out of the Scottish Cup by Aberdeen, and that's probably not going to go over too well with Mr. Paul Stalteri, the Dundee United coach.
And De Vos had been praying that his team would be able to advance in his absence. Therefore, his absence would not be a problem, but it didn't turn out that way. 8 is no.
Jim Brennan, once again, we see way back in defense. Certainly has a great work rate and is prepared to get up and down that line. Like to see him a little bit more involved in the attack. Like to see him getting the ball at his feet so he can run at players. He hasn't really had an opportunity to do that tonight.
Back line forced to go all the way back to Kim for it before they move out again. Watson, Stalteri.
Well, if South Korea were the favorites in this group, Costa Rica have to be watching this game and thinking to themselves that South Korea are certainly beatable. They have to feel quite good about their chances, unless this is an off night for South Korea and they're capable of more, but I highly doubt that.
Well, I suppose it's hard to base everything on one game, but based on what we've seen, I guess we could go out on a limb and say that Costa Rica is maybe the best team in the group.
Well,
the most skilled team in the group.
Most skilled team in the group. They're capable, as are most Central American countries, of playing very well one game and then not even looking like the same team the next go-around. But they looked capable. They gave Canada all they could handle. Were unlucky not to win the game. And once again, looking at South Korea, I think that Costa Rica, of the two teams, are the better side.
There's YP Lee with the corner for Korea. It's in there nicely, but big De Vos is there to knock it away.
And that's a great cross, because you could see Craig Forrest scrambling a little bit. It had a lot of pace on it. He started to come. He wasn't going to get there. And fortunately for Canada, Mark Watson cleared it away from danger. Another good cross.
Corazzin missing that one. And then it's just aimlessly cleared back to the Korean keeper.
What is disappointing is, even though South Korea were well beaten by Holland at the last World Cup, their play, there was an urgency, there was a sharpness, there was an incisiveness to their play that we have not seen any of tonight.
Korea will get this ball. There's referee Brian Hall. Park going up for that one. Holger Osieck looks on. Don't blame us for the spelling of his name there. That's the host broadcaster coming out of Los Angeles with that butchering of Osieck's name. There's Lee. Put in front, but
a little fortunate for the Canadians on that particular cross. 3 went for the same ball. Had it have been a glancing header, there was a free South Korean in the Canadian box.
Miscue there by the Korean defender allowed Jim Brennan to make the move. Brennan's still fighting for it. And the call goes the other way, and he's not happy with that. It looked pretty close there.
I think the referee, Mr. Hall, has given a free kick, which also seems a bit harsh. Certainly the throw-in would have been Canada's. Well, Canada's certainly putting a lot more pressure on deeper into the South Korean end, and Korea taking some chances.
Hudson against Yoo on that play. Stalteri. Let Brennan too much. That's the kind of thing that Canada's depleted midfield have been doing a fair amount of, and that's coughing the ball up, turning it over.
Right now, both teams are coughing the ball up. Neither playing very well when in possession of the ball. Great tackle by Jason De Vos.
De Vos then sending it downfield. Here's Brennan.
Now this is where he's good. Should be getting at them.
Hastings. Brennan again. Pushed off the ball by D.K. Kim. Cleared by Park. Stalteri.
Right now it's a question of who can turn the ball over quicker, because both teams are simply just giving it back to one another. There's no real extended run of possession.
Well, you'd hope for a run of possession to be climaxed by a scoring opportunity, but instead it's just a giveaway. There's another one, that time by Korea. There's De Vos now. Jin-Sub Park. Another turnover. Back and forth. My goodness.
Let's analyze this. What do Canada need to do to generate some offense? They need to get the ball wide. They need to get Brennan involved. They need Xausa in the middle of the park to get on the ball. They need to try and get Jeff Clarke in down the right. South Korea, they just simply need to turn up their game 10 or 15 notches. Right now they're playing at a slow pace. They'll never break the Canadian defense down if they continue to play at the same speed that they're playing at right now.
Looking for the long ball on that one, but headed back by Watson to Craig Forrest.
And Alf pointed out halftime that Mark Watson is looking very solid at the back. I think the whole back four are solid, but in particular, Mark Watson has not put a foot wrong tonight. On that particular occasion, very, very comfortable in playing the ball back into Craig Forrest's hands whilst under pressure from a South Korean attacker.
It seems kind of ironic, doesn't it, that while Canada has been under far less pressure in the midfield and on the defense, they've had much more time to move the ball forward, and yet they've been unable to get it to Peschisolido and Corazzin as much. I haven't seen a run from either one of them.
And it may be that the mindset they've gone into the game with, again, reading the information that's come out of the Gold Cup in advance of the tournament. South Korea, most people felt we're going to be one of the stronger sides here. So you get yourself in a state of mind where you think we've got to defend well, and then the next thing you know, you're in a position where you should be taking the game to the opposition, and Canada just can't seem to put a string of passes together.
Well, in Peschisolido's defense, perhaps in the second half here, he's hurting from that knock he took in the first half to the ribs. Might have hampered his performance.
And it might be a little unfair. People might think, well, Paul Peschisolido really hasn't done a lot, but he's not going to win games on his own. He's going to need service from the midfield, from the back, and he can only do so much. And there have been two games where, for the most part, they've been on the defensive, and they haven't been games where he could show his stuff.
There's De Vos now. Hastings. Back to De Vos. Smart play there from Corazzin. Hastings is trying to break through, and he can't quite do it, but that was a good header back from Corazzin.
And a good run by Richard Hastings, moving up from his left fullback position, almost getting a free run in at the keeper. Good tenacity to continue chasing the ball. It just wouldn't come down for him, allowing the South Korean just to get a foot in and play it away from danger.
Canada coming on perhaps a little bit here. Another opportunity there, but that time Xausa's shot goes nowhere.
Looked like it took a redirection, and they've got a corner kick.
And Dwayne De Rosario is getting set to come in for Paul Peschisolido. So whether it's simply because Peschisolido has been ineffective, or whether he's hurting, or maybe a combination of the two, at any rate, Dwayne De Rosario, 19-year-old from Scarborough, Ontario, is into this game, his first taste of the Gold Cup.
De Rosario has the capabilities to do what we'd like to think Peschisolido can do. He's very quick, he's prepared to go at players, so maybe worth the change at this point. And I don't think, again, that there'd be too much disappointment with the way Paul Peschisolido played. I think you have to look at the team effort in that regard, and the service that he's been getting, but probably a worthwhile move, inserting fresh legs at this stage.
And for Korea, a substitution as well. J.Y. No, number 8, a midfielder, comes off, and on comes number 4, Dongwon Seo. Opportunity here for Korea. Too many moves, perhaps, and then finally the shot. Not much on it.
If you want to talk about textbook defending, you just saw it there. The South Korean going at the Canadian defense, Canadian defender simply standing up, waiting for the South Korean to take the initiative, and in the end, South Korean shoots a shot well wide of the goal.
Dwayne De Rosario, who has played for the Olympic team recently at a camp, an exhibition series of games in Mexico. He scored 2 goals in each of the first 3 games there, so he's been effective at that level. Coach Osieck now having a look at him with the senior side.
And he will be similar to Paul Peschisolido in that he will like to play off of a player like Carlo Corazzin. And unfortunately, Carlo hasn't had the opportunity to either redirect balls or get balls comfortably played into him. He hasn't been able to keep his team in possession, but that tandem should be similar to what Peschisolido and Corazzin can provide.
Canada not doing very much in the way of offense, but South Korea very feeble in terms of trying to break down the Canadian defense as well. This game certainly doesn't have the pace nor the excitement that the first game had, the Canada-Costa Rica game. Much better played game that was than this.
Better played, but I think the most important aspect of there was an intensity, there was an urgency to that game. Even though Canada were on their heels, they were having to play to their maximum to thwart the Costa Ricans. And the Costa Ricans looked very, very crisp in their passing, good strikes from long range, did get in behind the Canadian fence on occasion. And that game had the intensity, it had the urgency. This game, quite frankly, has been a bore up to this point. It's a game of chess.
Still a scoreless tie. Could be very advantageous to Canada.
No, and I was just going to say that, but let's look at the positive aspect of it, because if the scoreline stays as is, Canada will have an excellent chance of going through to the next round. And what is the objective at this point? Is to try and play as many good internationals prior to World Cup qualifying as possible, and that's why Canada want to extend their run at this Gold Cup.
Well, and if they do extend it, their opponent will very likely be Mexico. That will, of course, be by far the toughest game that this team has had since Holger Osieck took it.
And that is the best benchmark in CONCACAF. Mexico are acknowledged as the power in CONCACAF. They're ranked 10th in the world overall. So you're right, it would be a very good test, and I'm sure it's something that Holger Osieck and the Canadians would relish at this point.
Not to second guess the move that Osieck made by sending in De Rosario, but keep in mind he also has Garret Kusch on the bench, who is not exactly the most skillful player, but perhaps might provide some intimidation factor with the Koreans with his size and his aggressive behavior. However, he's still on the bench and De Rosario is on.
Well, certainly in the player-for-player swap, De Rosario is comparable to Peschisolido, and Kusch would be more comparable to Corazzin as a target man. So we may see Kusch inserted into the game at some point.
As you can see, a bit of breakup of the picture there. That's a transmission problem from the broadcaster in Los Angeles. Apologies for that. Stalteri. Stalteri still trying to figure out what to do with it. Back, lots of Menezes. Menezes pops it up. That's a bad play by Tony Menezes, and now Korea has an opportunity here. Scrambling in the box. Number 18, that was the substitution. Pardon me, number 18, I had that right. He was doing all the work there. That's Hwang, but he couldn't come up with it.
When you get on the edge of the box like that, you just simply need, once you get yourself a half a yard, get a strike on goal, anything could happen. You waited far too long, allowing the Canadian defenders to get back and provide the opportunity to snuff out the danger.
Again, our apologies for what's happening with your picture. That's a problem with the host broadcaster in Los Angeles. Lee for Korea. Good hard challenge there on him, and he has been sent down.
Both players went in, slid in, and you could tell that there was going to be a collision. And South Korea has come off worse from that collision. Lee limping away.
Jim Brennan continues to be tireless for Canada on the other hand.
You can see again a fair challenge, both going in. Hastings getting the better of it.
Stalteri to De Rosario, but Korea come away with it. Just over 20 minutes, plus time added on, still to come. Watson. 2 goals in his international career for Canada. 55 appearances now. Canada's ball.
Carlo Corazzin doing a good job down the right, accepting the ball from the throw-in, shielding it from the South Korean defender, and drawing a foul as he made his way down the sideline. These set plays right now should be treated as golden opportunities. You can see Jason De Vos at the back. Oh, the crowd getting a little bit of a sideshow there, and a good one at that. Look at that heading ability.
More ability in the stands than on the field. That's unfair. Here we go. Here's a crack at it, and that's not going to go anywhere.
Well, I can assure you that Jason De Vos would be frustrated. He makes his way up from the back to the far post, has been very effective throughout Holger Osieck's reign in getting on the end of crosses. He gets up there and the ball's driven into the near post. So he may as well have not even been there.
Keeper Kim taking his time to deliver this one.
Mark Watson doing a great jog from the right fullback position. He tucks in around and is there to pick up the pieces and head the ball safely back into Craig Forrest's hands.
Mark Watson has been much more visible in this game than he was against Costa Rica. Here's Brennan. Challenged and stopped, stripped of the ball.
And with all due respect to Paul Fenwick, who's a very, very steady defender, I think one of the reasons why Mark Watson has been more effective and the back four have looked more solid is that Richard Hastings is an acknowledged left back. He stayed there. Mark Watson stayed on the right, and they've had some shape to their defense. And as a result, they're all a little clearer of as to what their roles are.
That was Seo, who came on a few moments ago, stripped of the ball. They keep going with it. Yes, Park drops it back. Kim. It's sent on from.
Good job of defending there by Davide Xausa. South Korean played the ball and went to run after it, and David simply stepped into his path, not allowing him to get the ball back again.
Park in flight, has it, sends it into the box. Knocked away again. Corazzin chasing that one down, but again, Korea sending it all the way back to the keeper.
And for Holger Osieck, one of the fact that they had Canada's had a rash of injuries, it's provided him with an opportunity to play a formula that he's not necessarily happy with, 4-4-2, but certainly in this game that Canada seemed to have grasped it much better. Perhaps the opposition hasn't been as good, but it does allow him the opportunity to switch from a 3-5-2 to a 4-4-2 if the need arises.
Well, I guess, if nothing else, then he's learned something about the flexibility that he has with this group of players. 17 is Park, moving into position. Again, can't penetrate. Kim.
That was perhaps the best bit of interpassing that we've seen from the South Koreans, but once again it fell down. When they got to the penalty box, they took one extra touch too many, and Canada snuffed out the danger.
Lee with Clarke working on him, and Clarke, nice play to take the ball away from him. Korea now, regrouping. This is Lee. Hwang. Chipping it in, but all the way to Forrest it goes.
And South Korea, we've indicated, are one of the better countries in Asia. The problem they've had is stepping it up beyond that level. They just don't seem capable, against better opposition, of scoring the goals that are required to win them games.
Just over 15 minutes still to go. Seo. Cleared out by Canada.
15 minutes, and if fatigue is going to be a factor, we should be starting to see that now, but Canada still look, physically, they look quite comfortable.
Lee putting it into play. Seo. Keeps it. Canada now. Hastings. Richard Hastings from Prince George, BC. Another youngster, just 22.
Not long in Prince George, though. Most of his life spent in Scotland.
Born in Prince George, at least, we're proud to say. Here's On with room down the left side. Trying to move in front to get the shot, and he does, and Forrest is there.
Second best chance for Costa Rica. Holger Osieck not happy late at this stage in the game. Don't want to be giving chances up like that.
It's their best opportunity of the second half, without a doubt.
And fortunate for Craig Forrest, he saw it all the way and was able to get down to his right.
J.H. On taking that shot.
Mark Watson comes across, goes for the fake, back onto his right foot, and a good save by Craig Forrest. A couple of the South Korean players perhaps not too happy that he took the shot there. Well situated in front of the goal, perhaps for the pass.
Korea perhaps coming on just a little bit here now with less than 15 minutes remaining. Should this game end in a tie, we will have to wait and see the outcome of South Korea against Costa Rica on Thursday night before we know who will advance from this group to the quarterfinals. Quarterfinal matches. Here's another chance in front for On. Again, it's On, and again, Craig Forrest is there. But the bad news is, for Canada, they're starting to get chances.
Perhaps they're getting a little weary at the back. They've just given up two good chances in the space of 5 minutes. Look at the South Korean in front of the goal. That header has to come back across the goal.
Number 6 is Yoo.
Is saying, get me the ball and I've got to tap in.
Here's De Vos now. It's Canada going to have to be careful here in the last few minutes. Hastings, cross in front and knocked away effectively.
Another good run by Richard Hastings down the left, and a good cross into the box that resulted in the Koreans having to scramble it away.
Tae-Young Kim clearing it from danger there. Brennan now with the corner. Cross for De Vos.
Well, there's no way that that should be given against Jays. Just don't give the free kick, because they're assaulting him prior to the ball coming in. And he gets caught perhaps for retaliating, but he's just not getting a free header on these crosses. Once again, I think if you've scouted Canada, you'll know that Jason De Vos is always the first option for crosses.
Watson heading that back out. But here come Korea again. This is Yoo. Voss is there to knock it clear. Korea will retain possession.
Oh, we've seen Yoo in the middle of the park for South Korea. He's supposed to be the anchor in the midfield, but we've seen him in advance in the box, creating and getting chances.
Front it comes again, but this time knocked clear, but Korea very quick on it. Stalteri now. Xausa. Has De Rosario had a touch yet? Not sure that he has.
Doesn't appear to have been involved, but if you think about it, he's no different than Peschisolido. He needs the service. He needs the players to pick out the runs.
Lee sends it back to Kim. Just over 10 minutes now. Will we find a late goal in this game? If it were to come from Canada, they would be through to the next round. If it comes from Korea, Canada's chances would be severely diminished. Here comes On, challenged by Stalteri. Stalteri's called for that one.
He was actually called for the initial challenge, not the second one, which was fine. He gave him a little push prior to that challenge. See the turn there? He's held him up a little bit, pushed him off, and that's where he gets called.
Crowd noise rising in the level in the background, as you can hear, with a larger crowd expected for Guatemala, Trinidad and Tobago, a Caribbean country and a Latin American country. And here comes a good-looking rush here for Canada. Oh, and that was wasted as well. De Rosario in front that time. The ball never came across.
Well, and that was a great through ball.
Xausa.
That Xausa running onto it. Just can't get it back across the face of the goal where De Rosario would have been running on to a tap-in had it got through.
Might have had an opportunity a split second earlier to send it across as another substitution for Korea. Off comes DK Kim, number 16, and on comes number 24, Seo. Ki-Hyeon Seo. There's De Vos in there fighting for that one.
Pressure by Canada, keeping the ball in the South Korean end. They get a corner from it. I'm sure Jason De Vos will make the trek up from the back, as will Mark Watson.
Well, even though they know he's going to be there, it's still the best move they have because he's so big and hard to move out. And there comes Brennan's cross. He was looking for De Vos, who couldn't get up for it in time.
You can see by those two calls, the last one on Jason De Vos and this one, I believe, on Jason De Vos, just how difficult it is to get a free kick in the opposition's box. And I go back to Canada's penalty that was given against on the push on Carlo Corazzin, and really they were very fortunate to get that call.
They're looking for something there, but it didn't happen. They will get free kick. And they have been known in the past to be dangerous on set pieces like this.
They haven't
shown much tonight.
They will likely look for a direct strike on goal here. That's still a long ways out. The wall, if you look at the wall, it's set up about 5 yards outside the box. It's making it about a 33-yard shot.
Gets all the way through, but there's no way that ball will get by Craig Forrest.
No, and Craig Forrest actually had the luxury of knocking it down and parrying it, knowing that it didn't have a lot of pace on it. So he gets his body behind it to make sure, simply parries it and collects and picks up the loose ball. Down, making sure that it doesn't squirt through.
Time winding down on both South Korea and Canada. Another point would put Canada in first place momentarily in the standings. Costa Rica still to play their second game. That, of course, coming against Korea. Canada, the tie here would have 2 points. Is that one? No danger there for Kim. Canada would have 2 points. Costa Rica and Korea each with 1.
And that actually magnifies the importance of Canada's 2 goals against South Korea. If you draw 0-0, you're going to be in tough. Now they've got 2 goals, so whatever the score line is in the next game, it needs to be, if it's a draw, it needs to be more than that in order for Canada not to go through.
Another close play to the left side on Forrest. And that one, fortunately, off the outside of the net, but Canada's right defense seeming to be a little bit weak here right now with all their scoring opportunities coming from over there.
Takes the ball down. In the end, if you look at Craig Forrest's positioning there, there's no way that shot's going in from that angle. Taken well on the chest, a little too far ahead of him.
Back to the scenario unfolding here in Group D. Now we're looking far ahead, obviously, but with this game appearing as though it may end up in a draw. If Costa Rica and Korea draw in 2 nights, each team would have the same number of points, and then you get into all the tie-breaking scenarios, and that's where goals for become so important, and Canada has the 2.
If I look at the form of both South Korea and Costa Rica, I think that South Korea, if they play the way they did against Canada, are more than capable of beating this South Korean team.
There's Lee.
And of course, that would be their best result for Canada if the game remains as it is, one or the other beating the other, so that then the team that loses is automatically out. Of course, that means Canada would finish second, which means that they would then play Mexico.
We would think. Can't imagine anybody beating Mexico in the preliminary round. Rosario doing some running there, challenging Kim, the keeper.
Very, very casual at the back.
An awkward challenge there from Corazzin. Under 5 minutes now.
A little bit of getting the foot up and bending your, well, not really bending down. Carlo was a long way off the ground with that right foot.
Here come the Koreans again. That one again on the same side, so they seem to be working towards that side, thinking that's where their chances might come from.
That was a good cross into the box, just led the Korean central striker a little too far, but a good cross into the near post. In the end, Craig Forrest comfortably collecting.
Korea's ball. Jason De Vos, of course, with the captain's armband once again. J.S. Park put it in play. Back to Park, who sends it back. Far side. Xausa clears it. Rosario looking for something. Choose Kang.
You have to wonder at this point whether South Korea would seem to be happy with the tie as well. They don't really seem to be doing anything extraordinary to go and get the win. They seem to be going along at the same pace that they have done for much of the match.
He's on. One of the more dangerous players for South Korea. Stalteri there working in the middle on Seo. And then cleared by Xausa. sends that one in. Dangerous again.
That's a poor challenge by the South Korean attacker. They've got Canada under a bit of pressure and let him off the hook by committing an unnecessary free kick. You see there, holding off Jim Brennan and then tugging at him, resulting in the free kick.
There's Forrest now. Park. This game does not even approach the game against Costa Rica in terms of interest.
It's simply just winding down right now. Neither team look to be too overly concerned about going for the winner. They both seem quite prepared to settle for the draw.
Corazzin. You can see there 2 minutes will be added on. So we're 2 minutes away from the end here. Canada and Korea. A tie here would mean that Holger Osieck would still only have 3 losses in 13 games as head coach.
And we acknowledged at the outset of this tournament that the competition was going to get stiffer. Certainly we saw that from Costa Rica. Rather disappointing performance tonight from South Korea. We expected more from them, but as you say, Holger Osieck's record overall has been very good to date.
3 losses in 14 games. I think I said 13 there a minute ago. It will be 14.
All of that will be irrelevant once World Cup qualifying starts. Bruce Arena, the American coach, when asked about the players that won't be here for his American team, simply stated that all of this is preparation for that first game of World Cup qualifying.
Attempt there into the box, headed away, but Korea still looking for one last effort here. And Forrest comes down with that one, but he's challenged there as he goes up for that one, and Craig Forrest is about 6'4".
Well, that was a token challenge, I think, just to try and see what he could generate. He generated a free kick is about all that happened. You see he does well to keep it in, down on the ground, actually gets up quite quickly. Craig's got it, oops, takes one in the midsection.
J.S. Park challenging there. Corazzin. Marked closely by Kang. There it goes. And that's it. Brian Hall blows the whistle, and this one goes into the books as a 0-0 draw, Canada and Korea. And so as ugly as the game was, the result not bad for Canada, puts them in a pretty good position. Given what we've seen from Costa Rica and Korea, you'd have to think that Korea is the better team. And if they, or pardon me, that Costa Rica is a better team, and if they are to beat Korea, then Canada would go through. And so once again, the score from the Los Angeles Coliseum, Canada 0, Korea 0. Back with our final wrap-up in just a moment.
The Gold Cup on CTV Sportsnet is brought to you by JVC, when performance matters. Hyundai, driving is believing. And by Adidas.
Okay, a quick comment on that, and that's probably the best thing after that game, although the result is good.
The result was great. Canada go into the game assuming they're going to get as difficult a match as they got against Costa Rica. South Korea were disappointing. Canada gets the draw, likely to get them through to the next round, which has never happened before at a Gold Cup. So let's hope that one or the other, Costa Rica or South Korea, beat each other, and we're in.
All right, well, we will find out Thursday night. It's Costa Rica and Korea. Don't forget, Soccer Central this Saturday, everyone. The Gold Cup edition. We'll have all kinds of Gold Cup action for you. We will be here for you with that on Saturday. And so once again, the final score from Los Angeles, Canada 0 and Korea 0. For Bob Lenarduzzi, I'm Jerry Dobson. For our entire crew here, so long everyone, and we'll see you next time.